today's session. As you heard, I want to talk to you about my experience in public health and why I think being in public health is one of the great joys that any scholar, any scientist, any student, any woman, any man could have in life. So I thought I would start by telling you about my journey in public health with a little bit of a story. And it's a story about the title of this talk, The Best Advice I Didn't Take. The story is when I was actually finishing my training. So I had gone through college, medical school, training in internal medicine, training in oncology, and I thought I didn't have enough education, so I went back one more time and got a master's in public health in epidemiology and biostatistics in public health school at UC Berkeley. After all of that training, I'm finally ready to go. I submitted my first grant to study a cancer that many patients with HIV/AIDS were getting at the time in the AIDS epidemic, Kaposi sarcoma, and much to my delight, my grant was approved. Everything was going as per plan. My academic career had started. When suddenly, out of nowhere, the Rockefeller Foundation approached University of California, San Francisco and said, we're very, very worried that it looks like AIDS is showing up in sub-Saharan Africa. That AIDS in a different way is showing up in Africa, and it's confusing and no one understands it. University of California, San Francisco was known for HIV and AIDS research and patient care, and so Rockefeller thought that they might help understand what could have been an emerging epidemic with heterosexual transmission of HIV. So Rockefeller Foundation and the faculty at UCSF asked me and my husband, we had been married 2 years only, and my husband's an infectious disease doctor, so they asked us if we would agree to be loaned to Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda. Thinking, oh my goodness, this wasn't the plan. There was no plan to go to Kampala, Uganda. I had to find a map, I'll confess, to see where Kampala, Uganda was. And I had a very good friend, Dr. Bob Cohen. We had trained through all this time in medicine and in oncology. And Dr. Cohen was a close friend and a close colleague, and he said, Sue, here's my advice to you. You should not take this assignment. You should say no. You've been preparing, you have your grant, you're well trained. You're headed for a career in academia that will be very posh, very important. So this is a distraction. We don't have a global health program. And the words he used were out of sight, out of mind. Everyone will forget about you. So I went home, I talked to my husband, I said, Bob's a friend, he seems like he knows what he's doing, but you know, I can't see us saying no. So I didn't take his advice. And my husband and I traveled to Kampala, Uganda. I became an attending physician at the Uganda Cancer Institute, and for 2 years, diligently worked to understand this emerging, frightening, terrifying epidemic with many, many Ugandan colleagues. 2 years later, a little over 2 years, I went back to University of California, San Francisco, and went to our chief of medicine, sat at his desk, and said, okay, I'm back, I'm ready to proceed with my career in academic medicine. And he looked at his papers, and he said, I don't have a job for you. And I thought, oh my goodness, my friend Bob was right. I've ruined my academic career. I don't know what I'll do. I have to pay the mortgage, I have to pay the rent. I need to get a job. There were two things I knew at that time coming back from Uganda. The first one is that Bob's advice was right. No one was connected to me. They didn't really understand the work I was doing. So I had been out of sight, out of mind. And at that point in time, my academic career was over. The second thing I knew was that I was forever changed. That work in Uganda, that experience in real public health, working with Ugandan colleagues to improve the health of people in Uganda, my sense that everything that I thought about my academic career, and more importantly, everything I thought about me, had been wrong. My highest priority was probably not unlike some of you, getting good grades, top of the class, graduating first, aspiring to the next goal. I went to Uganda worried about whether or not I would be able to use the brain power I had to make a difference. I left Uganda much more fully informed of how privileged I was to have a mom and dad who asked about homework every night, to have 6 brothers and sisters who loved me, and no matter if I succeeded or failed, were there for me, and to have, when I turned on the faucet, water that was safe to drink. When I flipped a switch, the electricity came on. Everything was possible for me. And what I had learned was, for too many people in the world, it felt like nothing was possible. And I left thinking, no matter what I did in my career, I was going to make a contribution to give back for that privilege and all of those gifts that I had been given. So why am I telling you this story today? I'm telling you this story because it's not a linear journey to success in public health or any other career. And the most important thing I learned from this story and that experience is not to look outside at the public notions and conventions of rewards, recognition, titles, and academic life, but to start by looking inside at what's the most important to you and your values. So I want to talk to you today about my new job as CEO of Bill and Melinda Gates, where I've been for 4 years, and how I think about public health and India, and how all of you can contribute, no matter what you do in life, to the dream of healthy, prosperous lives for everyone, no matter where they are in the world. So I have a belief that's very, very strong and powerful, and that is that all human progress starts with health. Think to yourself of you or a loved one whose health has had a setback. Think of what a distraction, a difficulty, an impossibility it is to think about learning, about studying, about contributing when you don't have health. When health improves, life improves by every measure. Better health leads to better education. Better health leads to better economic opportunities and better prosperity for communities and countries. Healthy, thriving people builds better economies. That's why our foundation places a premium on public health. It's not uncommon people introduce me to the Minister of Health, and I'll ask, while I'm here, can I speak to your Minister of Finance? It's an economic imperative that every country maximize the health of their citizens. So what do I mean when I talk about public health? I mean things like clean water, sanitation, nutritious food, access to basic care and medicines. All those things I took for granted before I went to Uganda. All things that maybe all of us at moments take for granted. For millions of Indians, especially women and girls in rural communities, these things can be lacking in their daily lives. Why? Well, it turns out that the public health system in large parts of India faces enormous challenges, enormous complexities. In Bihar, the lowest level health facility, which typically has around 6 beds, delivers 185 babies per month and serves a population of 190,000. So a very pregnant woman might have to walk up to 5 miles, 2.5 kilometers, to get to a clinic that is overcrowded and wait for hours for doctors who are overwhelmed, then give birth without any medications to ease her pain. Our foundation is working with partners to help strengthen India's public health system by training community health workers improving facilities and systems, and improving treatment practices in both the public and private sector. So I'm telling you a bit of a gloomy story in Bihar, but the story is good. The story is one of health progress and human progress. We began working in India in 2003 with the launch of an HIV prevention program that has prevented 600,000 new infections. 600,000. We supported the government of India to eliminate polio. And happily for everyone in the world, India declared itself polio-free in 2014, a massive accomplishment. We were also a partner in addressing maternal and newborn tetanus, which was eliminated in India in 2015. So what about today? Today in India, our healthcare work focuses on supporting Indian innovation in healthcare research and development with new tools to help support health. Things like Menafrivac, a vaccine for meningitis in Africa, and rotavirus vaccines. Just yesterday, I visited Serum Institute. Serum Institute is a great symbol of what India is capable of. Research and development, low-cost production, quality control, supplying most of the world's vaccines for people of low resources. This kind of work, this kind of innovation and focus on health is transforming the lives of millions of people in India, and it's transforming the lives of those in the lowest resource areas, specifically Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. I've been to both Bihar and Uttar Pradesh on visits that I've had before in India, and I am so struck by how profoundly challenging the poverty is, the levels of inequity are in both of these states. Our foundation is working with everyone in those states to improve the lives of all families in Bihar and UP. And in both areas of work, something that, again, you can all take from your academic career, as I did, data underpins everything we do. You cannot transform public health without data and information. We believe in the power of measurement and the power of data, and we take a relentlessly scientific approach to everything we do. But all those statistics, all that data, they can't tell the stories of the humans, of the lives of the people who are behind those data points. For every data point on under 5 mortality, there's a mother, a father, a family who's lost a child. For every data point on maternity mortality, there's a mother who's lost her life giving birth. That should never happen anywhere in the world. So although we relentlessly pursue our goals using data, we make sure we never forget the human face of what it means to have access to medicines and vaccines, what it means to people to have improved sanitation, safer attended births, better nutrition, and advice and tools for family planning. Now, you might notice in my talk, and it's not just because I'm here with all of you, that I'm talking a lot about women and girls. It turns out that at the Gates Foundation, early on, we found that there's a common denominator if you want to make the world a better place. And that common denominator is women and girls. The undeniable truth is, at the core of every problem we're trying to solve, from poverty to disease, there's an undervaluing of the lives and the value of lives of women and girls. So in fact, last month, just this last month, for the first time ever at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we launched a new gender equity strategy. We have a specific strategy focused on gender equity, and that is intended to transform the way women participate in economies and how they exercise power over their lives. Poor women and girls don't always benefit when economies grow. Economies aren't automatically inclusive. Just because things get better, they don't get better for everyone. Particularly, they don't necessarily get better for poor women or poor girls. But we do know that when women participate in the economy, poverty decreases, and gross domestic product grows. Economists everywhere will tell you that. So when women and girls take charge of their own future, when they have what we call agency, the power to make decisions for themselves and their families, not only does that family benefit, but those benefits last for lifetimes and generations to come. Now, I told you this is our first gender equity strategy, but we're not starting from scratch. Gender has always been at the heart of our work, from maternal and child health to nutrition to family planning. Now, there are two things that we've specifically focused on in this gender work that I want to focus on in my remarks today because they're particularly important in India and particularly important for anyone who aspires to make a difference in public health. The first of these is family planning, and the second is nutrition. So let me start by talking about family planning. Like all of you, and like me, young women everywhere in the world want to control their own lives. They want to be in charge of their own fate. Now that includes having their own charge over when they want to get married, and when they want to have a child, and how many children they want to have. Not all girls in the world, including in this country, have that opportunity. Every 5 minutes in 2016, 125 pregnancies occurred that were unplanned or mistimed. And 52 million women in India want to delay or prevent pregnancy, but they are not using modern contraceptives. More than 70% of women who use some form of contraception choose sterilization as their method. Too many women have too many children, too soon, and that affects their health and the health of their children. At Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we believe that all women should have the right to decide to use contraceptives and which method she wants to use. We're working with government, communities, and private sector to drive access to whatever she wants, to drive choice, and very importantly, to drive the quality of family planning services. Now let me turn now to nutrition. India faces a unique development paradox. It is at the same time among the fastest growing global economies, and yet it's home to the largest number of malnourished children in the world. This is a paradox. There are regions where malnutrition is not the exception. In fact, it's the norm. More than half of all women in India are anemic. Just think about that. The main cause of anemia among young girls, pregnant women, and mothers of young children is iron deficiency, a correctable form of anemia that can be fixed with pills and a better diet. Why should a basic supply of IFA tablets be an issue? Why should women be the last to eat? Why should women be expected to give bigger portions to men and boys? Women who are healthy produce children who are healthy. That's a simple concept. So the more you value human life, the more you value your children, boys and girls. You value mothers, you value women. Mothers need to be given enough space and time to raise healthy children by initiating timely breastfeeding and exclusively breastfeeding for 6 months. There's no better start in life for a child. So those two powerful, simple concepts of family planning and nutrition can drive healthy women, healthy babies, healthy children, healthy families, and a better and healthier future for India. And those are classic public health concepts. So I'm very eager to answer your questions, and just looking at this audience, I know you won't be too easy on me. I expect that from you. But before we do that, let me go back to where I started. Let me go back to my story about going to Uganda. I hope for all of you that you can have that kind of experience for yourself. When I went to Uganda, I thought of myself as a good student, a good test taker, somebody who studied hard, and my metric for success was an A, a high grade. That's how I judged myself. But when I left Uganda, I realized the most important thing is it doesn't matter if you're smart if people don't benefit from your brain. When I left Uganda, I asked myself, I've been given so many gifts, I've been given so much in my life. How could I live with myself if I don't give back? If I don't use whatever skills or talents I have in service of others? Good intentions are not good enough. You shouldn't think that there's anything special about me because I work at Bill or Melinda Gates Foundation. You should challenge me, what did you get done? Whose life improved? Whose outcome was better as a result of your work, of your activities? What really matters is if progress happens because of you. So here's my advice for how you can do that, starting right now. First, challenge the social and cultural norms that entrench poverty and poor health. See yourself in the women and girls struggling in other parts of this country and be as outraged for them as you would be for your own mother, your own sister. Secondly, deal in facts. Value data and evidence above theory and doctrine. And third, don't blindly accept that inequality is inevitable, that that's the way it's always been. We know progress is happening because we see it happening all around us. So here's the last thing of advice I really want to give you. Don't do what I did with Dr. Bob Cohen. I'm giving you very good advice, and you should take it. Don't ignore this advice, because the advice I'm giving you isn't how to have a successful academic career. You have wonderful professors and a principal who can tell you about how to have a wonderful academic career. Take their advice, not mine on that front. But on having a meaningful life that makes you happy and gives you joy, you can play a part in eradicating disease. You can change the course of poverty and inequity in India. You can make sure that as a result of your personal efforts, you can build a prosperous, more healthy, and more equal India. And I'm going to remember all of your faces, and when you do that, I'll remember this day and that you took my advice on that. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Su, for such an inspiring talk. It is an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you.
I request you to please take a seat so we can then begin with our Q&A session.
So I have to sit because the questions will be difficult. So I need my stamina.
Dr. Su, during the run-up to this session, we all hosted a contest called Ask Su to give students the opportunity to ask you questions they might have on public health and such issues. Now, out of the numerous questions we got, we selected the top 3 for you to answer. And before we go ahead with the questions, I would like to remind our audience, if you have any more questions for Dr. Su, please feel free to tweet your questions to us using the hashtag #YouthForHealth. Alternatively, you may also send in your queries on the Facebook page of the Gates Foundation, where you will find a live of this event. On the comment section, you can go ahead and send in your queries using the same hashtag #YouthForHealth. Now, in no particular order, one of the best top 3 questions for our Ask Su contest, and please put your hands together for the winner. I congratulate Akansha Sharma. Akansha, can you please rise for us? Congratulations. Thank you. In short, her question is, we typically tend to think about development as skyscrapers, robots, and other such symbols of material prosperity. Ideas such as universal healthcare, education, frugal innovation, precision public health remain alien to the masses. Dr. Su, in your opinion, where did we go wrong, and how do you think we can correct this myopic vision?
Oh, so thank you so much for that question. I couldn't agree with you more. I think where we went wrong in some ways is how we communicate. If you think about a skyscraper, a robot, a new invention, a flying car someday, it's visible. You see it. It's in front of you. And it's not uncommon that people celebrate that kind of invention, that kind of innovation. Here's the beautiful thing about one of my favorite inventions, vaccines. So if you think about the value of a vaccine, you can measure lives saved and lives improved in the millions. But we don't always speak like that about vaccines. If we did a better job, and one of the most important assets any great public health professional has these days is excellent communication. If you think about water, safe place for sanitation, vaccines, saving millions of lives for people who would have been sick, couldn't learn, were held back by that, should be celebrated. So I think it's up to all of us to do a better job. I'm particularly happy to hear the term precision public health in your question. I had a fantastic career developing new cancer drugs that started this field of precision medicine, where you targeted the gene that caused the cancer. And it's become very famous and a great way to avoid side effects and toxicity of some of our cancer treatments. It makes me crazy that we're not as precise about public health. Where are the places that need to be vaccinated? If you get a map of India, where do we need to target those family planning interventions I talked about? So precision public health gives us literally a roadmap into who can benefit most. We can use all the best technology, and India on digital is in the forefront. So things like precision public health and celebrating who can benefit, lower costs, increased impact. Now that's a kind of invention we should all be celebrating.
Thank you so much. For the next shortlisted question, I congratulate Arvind Gandhi. Arvind, can you show us where you are? Congratulations. In short, his question is, in light of anti-vaccine propaganda, what do you think could be the strategies and measures for us to adopt as a country to counter this propaganda? We all know it is detrimental to the health and future of children.
I really appreciate the question on the anti-vaccination sentiment that is not just in India, but is an issue and challenge worldwide. And here's the thing that I've learned about such denialism, I think is the right word for it. Unlike public discourse, unlike the conversation we're having, denialism is driven by ideology. It's driven by a very strong point of view that has much more to do with followership and what I believe and who I want to follow. So here's what doesn't work. Talking louder, shouting, shaming doesn't work. I'm powerful, I'm at a college and you're not. I'm well educated and you're not. All of us who care deeply about vaccines and their benefit need to start with listening, reflecting, and accepting that as elites, as experts, we're not always people who citizens trust. So here's what can work. The first thing, and I think India is in a beautiful position to use your own history. So vaccines are why there's no more smallpox. Vaccines are why India eradicated polio and declared itself polio-free in 2014. Anyone who's known a family member or a loved one who had paralysis from polio has to celebrate that polio vaccine allowed for people not to have that terrible, paralyzing illness of polio. So our own history teaches us that vaccines have helped millions of people avoid these diseases. The second one is, and it's true for all of us who are well educated, we have to be part of our own communities. We won't be trusted because we went to college. We won't be trusted because we have initials after our name, MD, PhD, master's degree. We'll be trusted because we're a neighbor, a friend, a colleague who worships at the same place of worship, who participates in our local schools. So scientists and experts have to be involved in their own community. That's what makes you believable, not your credentialing. It makes you believable because you care and you're part of the community. And the last thing that is something I think is actually an emerging science that all of us who are public health experts need to understand. And it's called inoculation theory. Now, we all think of inoculations like a vaccine, right? Well, it turns out that there's another kind of inoculation, and it's inoculation against denialism. So if I'm talking about climate change and someone denies climate change, I can go to a community and say, here's what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you that some expert did this study and said, well, the temperature's not that much higher. So be ready for that because that's a myth. That's fake news. You can actually inoculate citizens against denialism by telling them in advance, you might want to ask some questions when that comes up. So you can proactively inoculate the brain to say, wait, I'm not going to believe everything I hear. I'm going to ask questions, I'm going to get informed, and I'm going to look to my community members for us to talk about on things like climate change or vaccines, what's good for our community. So this is a very, very important anti-vax, very powerful movement, very dangerous for all of us who care about health.
And I'm sure we all can incorporate this in our lives as well.
I hope so.
Thank you
yes.
so much. Now for our final top question, I congratulate Anjali Kashyap. Anjali, can you show us where you are? Congratulations. In other words, her question is, since maternal nutrition and child nutrition are closely linked, how can a comprehensive policy be formed to solve the problem of malnutrition in India?
This is such an important issue. And I mentioned how important nutrition is for Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Here's how I think about it. I actually think it's, I didn't mention it before, but I'm one of 5 sisters. So I have 4 sisters, 2 brothers. And I think about maternal and child nutrition maybe in a special way because I've grown up among so many women. If you think about it, there's something that is magical about adolescence. Think about yourself as an adolescent. In adolescence, you learn about your body. You learn about the things like family planning, about reproductive health. And when you're an adolescent, it's a magical time in life. You're growing, you're developing, your brain's a little crazy sometimes. Think of how powerful it is for India, for that adolescent girl to start by having knowledge of her own nutrition, of her own reproduction, of her own body, and how to be healthy for her whole life. The importance of things like exercise and fresh air and meditation. I know you're into yoga around here. All of these things are a part of a healthy and productive life. If you care about families and moms, you'll start with adolescent girls. It's inevitable that that conversation about maternal health, it doesn't start in the antenatal clinic. It starts in young girls. So I think the powerful question we all have to ask ourselves in public health, how do we get to adolescent girls? There's not an adolescent girl clinic. There's an antenatal clinic. There's a clinic for new children, for babies. So one of the really tough questions we've started to ask ourselves is, how do we get these messages out? Whether it's protecting yourself from STDs or HIV or nutritional messages. So it starts in adolescence, but even if you didn't get it then, antenatal clinics and women getting the vitamins, the nutrition that she needs will allow for her to have a safe birth. A facility birth is very important. Exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months is essential for that baby and the health of the mom. And then we're also doing investigation into fortification. So fortification can help from a public health standpoint to accelerate health, and having a healthy, nutritious diet. Maternal education is a very important part of that again, so that that baby gets the knowledge in their mom that they need to feed that child. So it really all comes together in the brain of the mom.
Thank you so much. With that, we come to the end of the Ask Sue questions. Can we have a big round of applause for all our winners? Here's the next question we have for you. This is from the audience via Twitter. I congratulate Sampath for this question. He asks, what is the lowest hanging fruit in India with respect to making a difference in health for women and children?
The lowest hanging fruit in India. That's first of all, I love getting your question through Twitter, so that's great. Thank you for that. There's so many things I could mention, but let me go back to one that I think is just so fundamental. And I'm a cancer doctor. I often was in a position of taking care of people after something happened and someone was very, very sick. In part because that was the experience I had as a physician, I have come to believe in vaccines as almost like it's a miracle. And a miracle is a big word. I don't want to use hyperbole. I don't want to overstate. But consider something that costs pennies a dose, that when delivered and when coverage is high, can prevent the most difficult things, from tetanus to measles to polio. I think the lowest hanging fruit is high coverage for vaccination. And the high coverage for vaccination is something that is incredibly equitable. No matter where you live, you can have high coverage for vaccines. No matter what your income is, you can drive high coverage for vaccines. So vaccines are tools that we have in public health that it's hard for me to think about that kind of cost being so low, the safety being so well proven over the years, and the amazing nature of a vaccine that they can protect us against something we haven't yet been exposed to, using our own body's immune system to mount a defense. Actually, as I even say that out loud, I think it actually is a miracle. It's a beautiful thing, and it is the lowest hanging fruit in India and globally to keep citizens healthy.
Thank you so much. The next question we have is again via Twitter. Now this question is asked by Sohini. She wants to know, not all of us can be directly involved in public health at the ground level. How do we as students give back to humanity in a way that actually makes a difference?
Thank you for that beautiful question. So here's something that I really love about India. I mentioned that when I think of India, I think of things that Indians have been aware of for much longer than people like me. Things like meditation and yoga and mindfulness. This has become very popular in America, but this isn't new news in India. So I think my answer to the question might surprise some people, but one of the things I think we can all do as citizens, as students, as professionals, which everyone in this room will be a professional, you're on your journey to being a professional, being effective starts with taking care of yourself. And no matter what you're signed up to do, whether you're CEO, whether you're the president, whether you're a principal, no matter what you do in life, you can't show up in ways that you're proud of, in ways that inspire people and give them joy, if inside you're tired, upset, cranky, worried, unhealthy. I think taking care of your own physical and mental health is a massive asset for all of us. Now, sometimes we have health issues through no control of our own, and that's difficult, and people have to deal with that. But so many health issues for ourselves are driven by ourselves. And so I would encourage all students who care deeply about equity, public health, to start by taking care of your own health, your own mental and physical health. It will allow you to be more generous to others, and it will allow you to, no matter what you do, if you're a mathematician, a scientist, if you're a professor, if you're a volunteer, if you're a great mom, all of those things will be enhanced if inside you show up really well.
I'm sure we all can relate to it. Thank you so much. As much as I'm sure we would all love to have more questions from the audience, from each other, but due to the limited time that we have, I'm afraid we're going to have to close our Q&A session. Dr. Su, I cannot be happier in being here with you, having these questions answered. It is a delight. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a delight for me. Thank you very much, and thank you to all.